All right. Well, let me bring up my slides then. And thank you, Pierre, for the invitation. It's great to see familiar faces, and it's my privilege and honor to share some of our experience with all of you. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. So, well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Grady Children's and give you a little bit of context about where I work here in San Diego. Then I'll share a little bit of our journey around COVID-19 and where we are today. We'll talk about HIE, and then I'll share some thoughts about reimagining care. I've put together a bunch of slides. There might be too many slides, so I'm gonna play it by ear, and depending on how we're doing, I might decide to skip a slide here or there. But if anything is of interest, please don't hesitate to ask along the way, and we'll figure out a way to hit those topics that are of most interest for all of you. So with that, Rady Children's is the both the provider of choice as well as the safety net for pediatric care in San Diego, and our region involves both San Diego County as well as Imperial County to the east of us, which extends all the way to the Arizona border, and then Southern Riverside County north of us. You can see the stats here. We've got 524 beds, $1.2 billion in revenue annually, about 5,100 employees, about 1,400, 12 to 1,400 physicians, 1,500 nurses. You see our stats for admissions and surgeries and outpatient visits. We are in the top 10 best children's hospitals in the U.S. We're in the Magnet recognized institution for nursing and most wired, both ambulatory and acute and long-term care. We are unique in that we take care of a large portion of the pediatric population in our area, which means we have this concept of one patient, one record. We have a very rich database that drives a lot of discovery, because we have patients from birth through adulthood, once we pass them on to the adult systems, across every socioeconomic level in the region, across every ethnic makeup and background in the region. It's a very, very rich database that drives a lot of innovation and discovery. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our COVID journey, which started almost 2 years ago for us, because we learned that the first plane that left China with expats when the COVID first hit landed here in San Diego, and first pediatric patients came to Rady Children's. So in January, we got a call to say, hey, we're sending you some patients. They will land in a few hours. We quickly built some screening in our EHR, and that's what got our COVID journey started. In March, we were doing testing. We got our genomics institute involved. We developed some screening applications, order sets within our EHR, and we also had a stay-at-home order from the governor in California, and so had to quickly scale up our remote workforce, and built all that up. You can see all the activity that we had over the following months in terms of building functionality in our electronic health record, building dashboards to help our clinicians and decision makers guide our activities. We built additional integrations to exchange information with the county and the state and the federal agencies. We continue to improve our remote workforce capabilities to make the interactions with our patients as smooth as we possibly could, both from a telemedicine standpoint, but also when patients needed to come on site, to minimize the amount of physical contact that we had, and rolled a number of tools to facilitate that, lots of dashboards to guide decision making, not just internally for us, but for our partners as well. And as you can see along the way, there was no shortage of improvements to the tools that we made. Then last year around this time, the vaccination effort got started, and we ramped back up again, not just with the testing that we had been doing for the community, but also with vaccinations, first for our workforce and then for the larger community. And that has continued along the way. You can see kind of the full picture here. There was no shortage of activity. We have a somewhat exhausted IT team, but also obviously our clinicians and our operations folks who saw a lot of change in the way they work being driven to them. Come March, we had the refugee crisis from migrant children crossing the border, and Rady Children stepped up to help the federal government dealing with those kids and making sure that they were well cared for, that they had proper health care, that they were safe. And we stood up basically a health center with a primary care clinic, urgent care, lab, pharmacy, all in a matter of a week. And we operated that for several months. Then we had mandates for testing that were imposed on the Californian population, which helped us to keep things at bay, but obviously drove some activity for us as far as systems. And then we extended vaccinations, both boosters, teenagers, kids, etc. So very, very busy couple of years for our teams. Now, that meant several things, and we'll talk about them. The first one is it helped us to rethink interoperability, and I'll spend a few minutes talking about that. It also accelerated our telemedicine efforts and journey, and we'll also talk a little bit about that, and got us thinking about the future in a different way that we had been as an organization. So we'll talk about that as well. So when it goes to health information exchange, this is Rady Children's data. As you can see, we've exchanged information with all 50 states. Obviously, California is where we do the most exchanges. We've done since 2010. This is data from the early fall. So since 2010, we had exchanged close to 13 million records. Since we've surpassed the 13 million mark. We trade most effusively with Kaiser Permanente, Scripps, and UC San Diego, which are around us. some of you may know, we run the neonatal intensive care units of the adult hospitals, many of the adult hospitals around us, where it's our systems, our patients, our physicians, our nurses. We just buy ancillary systems from the host hospital, but it's something that's worked very well for us. We really have seen an enhancement of the information that our clinicians have at their fingertips when they're seeing patients transferred from these other facilities. Now, as we were talking earlier with Martin, the world has changed, right? When health information exchange started in the U.S. Decades ago, a lot of the HIEs used to be repository models. They were absolutely critical third-party entities that were necessary because EHRs did not do a good job exchanging information with one another. Well, fast forward, that world has changed. Now the large electronic health record vendors have built the capabilities to do good information exchange among them and across them, and that means that a lot of the native infrastructure that was absolutely necessary 10, 15, 20 years ago is now superfluous. And so this gives you a view of San Diego Health Connect, which is the regional health information exchange entity that we stood up in San Diego many years ago, thanks to a federal grant. But we exchange across a number of entities, and some of these entities still don't have modern EHRs, and they need some form of information exchange that is not EHR native, because they don't have one. But all the other ones, right, the ones that are not encircled by these red ovals, do have now native exchange capabilities. And so the reliance on a central exchange entity is much diminished, because now that exchange happens in different ways. The services that San Diego Health Connect used to provide were vast, as you can see in this slide. But again, a lot of these services that you see encircled on the green ovals are now something that happens natively within EHRs. And so the need for kind of that additional information exchange is from a different entity is much diminished, because, as I said, the EHRs can do this out of the box. So we're seeing an evolution where we relied on a portal to go check for information or drive information into the EHRs from that central repository. Now that's changing, and we see functionality that is kind of more midterm, short term, because again, as institutions modernize their EHRs, that functionality becomes native. But obviously, there are some reasons for which there is a need for an EHR, because it requires surveillance. It's political in nature. It drives public health purposes, and so that is the evolution that we see, very much in line with what Martin was talking about earlier for you all. There is also one other aspect of health information exchange that we need to be thinking about, and that is the integration of what is come to be known as the Internet of Medical Things, but it's all these sensors and patient monitoring that happens at a consumer level from the patient's home, whether it's tracking falls and loss of consciousness, or weight monitoring, or heart rates and electrophysiology, or glucose monitoring, or the quality of home air, or oxygen saturation, or asthma inhaler use, or medication adherence, right? Or physical activity tracking. All these plethora of devices that now produce a lot of data and can mean a lot of noise for us, but also, if done well, provide very valuable signals for our clinicians to take action. But the challenge is that there is a complete lack of standard in this space. There's a lot of noise, and this is one area where the market needs to mature a lot. But it's kind of the next frontier in health information exchange, and we're excited to start making inroads in this arena. So this gives me a perfect segue to move into kind of how we are reimagining the future. And we reimagine the future in kind of two big buckets, right? Bucket one is reimagining care, right? How do we redesign the care of our patients to conceptualize and take advantage of the digital world to drive better patient care? And the other one is reimagining work, right? And how do we innovate for a workforce to be more workforce and family centric and aware? So we use these driving principles that have helped us reimagine our future. And that's one of flexibility and nimbleness. The world has seen we have the ability to be flexible, and COVID forced us to do that, and that expectation is here to stay. We obviously want to continue to innovate and align with our overall strategic plan as an organization. We need to make sure that we're delivering care for the whole child, and not the whole child means not just the kid themselves, but it also means their families and their environment. It means that we need to do this within the constraints of the recovery. And when I say the constraints of the recovery, I don't just mean the financial constraints that the recovery has put on us, but also, I don't know if this is true in Germany, but we're dealing with a great resignation here in the US, lots of burnout across our caregivers, across our other disciplines. And that means we need to be more creative on how we continue to function. And we also have seen that an acceleration of retirements, and our baby boomer population was much bigger than Gen X and Gen Y that followed, and we're going to need to adapt to that decrease in the volume of our workforce, right? We need to make that future sustainable, make sure that it respects and it's aligned with our culture and our mission, and last but not least, that is friendly to our employees and their families who've undergone a lot of stress. So what does the future look like 10, 15 years from now? Well, I'll share three thoughts here. One is we see telemedicine continuing to grow, and you can see this data here that shows a compounded annual growth rate of 25% for telemedicine. We see artificial intelligence also seeing tremendous growth at 40%, 41% from 2020 to 2027. Granted, big growth rate is easier when you start from a smaller base, but nonetheless, significant numbers that we're talking about here. And third, as I was talking, the Internet of Medical Things, which is the next frontier. But as you can see here, it's anticipated to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of close to 30%, right? 29%. That is pretty impressive and something that's going to drive our care. And if we play our cards right, it's going to help us provide better care more efficiently, and allow our workforce to focus on more kind of higher cognitive, more fulfilling tasks. You'll see the sources for those citations there. So to give you an example of how we see our reimagined care, this is on the ambulatory front. We anticipate that we'll have an empowered patient that needs care, that they interact with a simple interface through their phone or their computer, to recognize through a chatbot of sorts, whereby they can get questions, provide answers, and using kind of artificial intelligence and other chatbot technology, they'll be able to be driven down the right path, whether that is a telemedicine session or self-care or an in-person visit, if necessary, engaging a patient care coordinator. If home health needs to be deployed, they can deploy that, where we will intake IOMT input to help gather decisions and do follow-up, where if they need to come on site, we'll be able to do virtual check-ins to facilitate their navigation through our system, right? We'll gather biometric and altogether drive a much better experience for our patients that provides the right care in the right way at the right time, with a lot less friction. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with this concept of a hype cycle, which is a Gardner model that's been in use for many years, but it walks us through this concept that any new technology goes through, starting with an innovation trigger, going up to a peak of inflated expectations as people think that this new technology is going to solve the world's problems, and then they start getting put into use, and we go through this throw of disillusionment where some things are good, but many things fail because it's not the right use case or it's not done in the right way. And eventually, the winners start going through the slope of alignment until they hit the plateau of productivity and mass adoption. And so this is a concept that is very well used. This is the 2020, I haven't seen the 2021 or 2022 for that matter, hype cycle from Gardner, but this is the 2020. And as you can see, it's a very busy slide. I'm not going to go through all of them, but what I will tell you is that a lot of these things we have in place, right? And at Rady Children's, but we also see opportunities to do other things, and this is where we're focusing our future. And I'll walk through some of those here in a second. So telemedicine is one of them. We think it matters because it's no longer a competitive advantage. Now it's kind of a part of, if you want to play, you need to have this functionality. It obviously has benefits for our patients, for our providers. We, as an organization, have a very strong base for this. We need to extend it to involve integrating peripherals, expand our capability via physician licensing to be able to provide services outside of California. And we have an opportunity to continue to optimize. As you can see, this is volume data for us from 2017 through present. And as you can see, in 2020, when we were in lockdown, our volume went through the roof. It's continued to stay high, although not as high as it was back in 2020. And we think that it's something that's going to to stay. Right now, we're hitting somewhere between 10 and 20%, some specialties higher, some specialties lower. But you can see when we ask our patients, and not everybody responds, but when we ask our patients, for those that respond, large majority would recommend telemedicine, and that is something that we continue to expect moving forward. We anticipate that chatbots are going to also facilitate the interaction with our patients. Younger generations are used to instant gratification. They need answers and they need them now, and chatbots will provide that ability to interact with them on their time frames at lower costs. We have some pilots that we've done, but this is an area where we clearly need focus and funding to continue to develop. We anticipate more use of robotic process automation. This is very important for us, particularly in light of the Great Resignation. We need to find better ways of doing things that reduce the friction on our workforce, and that allowed us to automate repeatable tasks and allow our workforce to focus on higher satisfaction work. We've done some of this on our revenue cycle. We've done it on the technical side of the house and systems management. We've done it in genomics, but we see a lot of potential and further use across the organization, across all disciplines. We also anticipate more predictive modeling and artificial intelligence with pattern recognition that is going to help us drive better patient safety, better productivity, better patient flow. We've got a strong foundation here with deploying of sepsis algorithms. We're doing a deterioration in our cardiac ICUs and in our emergency room. We do it obviously in genomics and in our infrastructure management, but we see again a lot more use here, and part of our challenge is going to be being able to recruit talent here at the pace we need to, because we are competing with the Googles and the Amazons and and all the big hitters that can offer a lot of perks and career growth potential that make it very hard to recruit in this space. But this is something where we might need to rely on partners to accelerate our inroads. Image analysis is another artificial intelligence area where we anticipate growth. This is one where we've made some inroads, certainly with our 3D advanced imaging lab, where we've done fantastic work, and our partners at UCSD have done very good work there. We have the Qualcomm Institute with a very strong base on image analysis, but I think as an organization, we have a lot of potential to continue to expand our partnerships there. We really haven't exploited those connections as heavily as we could have or maybe should have, and we look forward to moving more in that direction. This is Dr. Justin Ryan, who leads our 3D imaging and 3D printing lab, and it's a fantastic addition to our team. Ambient intelligence, it's another area, again, not something we're playing with quite yet. We're talking about it, but it's something that we see as something that's going to bring in back a little bit more of a humane and human interaction between providers and patients. Will hopefully help with physician burnout, and something that we'll continue to monitor as the technologies evolve. And lastly, Internet of Medical Things. I've talked at length about this, so I'm not going to repeat myself. When I look and when I talk to my peers on the executive team about this stuff, you talk. The higher up you talk, the simpler you need to make it, right? We can get into a lot of detail when we're talking to engineers, when we talk to executives. We need to keep things simple. So we've come up with this model of things that we're thinking about, things that we're talking about, things that we're piloting, things that we are using in very targeted areas, things that are used house-wide, and then things that are advanced, and we're actually at the cusp of the wave and writing the book on them. So when we look at advanced technology, this is where we're at on telemedicine. It's wide use for us, and we'll be writing the book. On chatbots, we're talking about it in 2021. We've got some rolling in 2022. Targeted areas in 23, and we expect to be widespread in 2024. RPA, we're a little bit further ahead on this one. We piloted several in 21. We anticipate more targeted uses in 22, in 23, and widespread in 24. Predictive modeling, it's on the same time frame. Image analysis, we're thinking about it. We'll be talking about it in 22, 23. We expect to pilot in 24, do more targeted uses. And this is beyond the 3D printing, which obviously is very advanced for us. The ambient intelligence, it's on the same path and time frame, and IOMT is more akin to the RPA and predictive modeling. But this is something that executives understand. And I have another one that I didn't put in here, but that shows kind of the levels of investments that we anticipate we're going to need as we move from one phase to the other, which obviously is kind of orders of magnitude different when you go from talking about it to piloting or to rolling widespread. But this is something that is driving our digital structure and our digital strategy. And I know I went very, very fast, but hopefully it's something that provides kind of a visual for what we're thinking. Last but not least, on the workforce side, we obviously want to be an employer of choice. That means we need to adapt, and we need to rethink how we source our work. And we no longer can rely on a monolithic, ready team, but we need to recognize that team is going to need help. We need to find good partners for staff augmentation. We need to drive more automation, as I said, so that our workers can focus on high satisfaction, highly cognitive tasks. We might need to go find partners beyond our borders, and in some cases we've done that. And we might need to think of partnering in different ways by making strategic investments in startup companies that are going to help us take care of some parts of our business, or help us run some innovation because we just don't have the capability to focus or to hire this very specific talent that is needed for an area that might need to work. So this is how we're thinking about the workforce of the future. We want to make their experience frictionless, available to work from wherever it is, where it makes sense, in a secure and productive way. And I think this is all I have. When we think of digital health, we are now asking, is it digital first? And with that, I thank you very much for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.